That's what leaders eat last means. It is very literal. It is very, very literal. And there's a symbolic gesture, but more importantly, there's an importance to it. That's what leadership is. That when there is danger, it's not protecting myself, but it's willing to put myself in harm's way to protect another. That's what eating last means. It means that I will give the very essence of life, food and water, I will give it to the person I love first, so that they may live, even if it means I eat less.
What is up, YouTube? Live via satellite here, and today we are talking Kingdom, Manga chapter 582. And this week, guys, was another great chapter of Kingdom. It was more of a setup chapter this week, but the thing that really stood out to me this week was actually the chapter's title. And if you've ever watched any of my videos before, you probably noticed that I never actually bring up the title, and that's actually not on purpose. I really just kind of forget to talk about it every single video. Occasionally I might mention it, but this week in particular, it actually stood out to me because it's called The Final Night. And when I first read this title, I automatically assumed that this had to mean that this was the final night of the battle, that the next day the battle would actually end. But after reading the chapter, it's a little bit more unclear because they could also be talking about just the final night of rations. But either way, I thought it was an interesting title, and we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. But this chapter did bring out a lot of guys we haven't seen in a while, like Osen, Raboku, and yes, even Moten. And of course, with the conclusion of this arc on the horizon, I hope we actually get to see Osen and Raboku stick around for a while. But when it comes to Moten, I wouldn't be surprised if after this chapter, he pulls another disappearing act, once again proving that he is a master magician.
I'm gonna change this car from red to black.
Did it work?
No.
Alright, so the chapter starts out with us at the Osen Army's HQ. And right away we see that they're receiving an urgent report that their right wing is currently pushing back the Zhao's left wing, to the point that they've even gone past the Zhao's campgrounds, but aren't stopping there. They're continuing to push them back. And the messenger says this news is very urgent and Osen needs to hear about it immediately. And if you're anything like me, after reading that statement, you were probably thinking to yourself, good luck, because it's been pretty hard getting through to Osen lately. Thank you for calling Center Army HQ. Unfortunately, Osen isn't here to answer your call, but please leave a brief message at the sound of the beep and we will be sure to get right back to you.
Hell, motherfucker, they coming to get me!
But look at this amazing response time. Not only do they not have to get Osen, but Osen's already there. And it appears that he's heard everything as he immediately calls for Denrimi and has all troops move out. And this movement of the center army doesn't go unnoticed as we see over on the left wing, Moten and his men are being informed of this new development. And it doesn't take long for us to see once again how perceptive Moten is, because while everyone else is questioning why the Osen army is moving now of all times after being still for so long, Moten realizes that it's obvious that with his army in a stalemate, that the only possible thing that could have happened is they've made progress on the right wing. And even though Moten's men seem shocked that the right wing's been somehow able to take control of their battlefield, even without Akko, Moten already knows that the reason has to be Ohan and Shin. But we do see that things haven't been so easy on Moten's side as we see that Bate's breaking through. But we get a glimpse of how Moten's been handling things as he goes out to handle Bate himself and sow confusion, because he realizes that it's even more important now for them to be able to keep up this stalemate. And even though he knows that it's pretty impossible for him and his men to get through the Kisui army, he believes that thanks to Shin and Ohan, that they actually have a chance of winning this battle. Then back over at the right wing, we see that Ohan and Shin pressured the Zhao all the way until sundown, and we actually get a nice diagram showing us just how far back they were actually able to push the Zhao left wing. And it also shows that the Osen army moved up just far enough to be in position to strike when and if their right wing was actually able to break through the Zhao's left wing. And back at the Hishin unit's camp, we see just how big of an impact today's battle had on their morale. And so pumped that he doesn't even care that they have no wine. After their achievements today, he even proposes that they toast with water. And there's only one person I know of who could have remedied this problem.
Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine at a wedding. Lord, we done ran out of wine. Well, y'all know normally I don't do this, but y'all gonna keep the party going.
And with everybody in high spirits, 10 can't help but to start thinking about the fact that even though everyone's morale is so high, she believes that this can't last much longer because everybody's body has limitations. And that once this high boost of morale that's masking their injuries wears off, that all the soldiers will come crashing back down. Not to mention that tonight is the last night that they'll be able to hand out food. And while 10's silently thinking about these things to herself, she can't help but to find herself shocked when Shin blurts out that it's time to get ready for the last food handout. Obviously not the way that 10 would have handled it. And Shin, seeing the look on his men's faces and the buzz-killing effect that his words had, suggests to 10 that they should handle the food handout a little bit differently this time around. And what Shin's idea was instead of having the men come up and form lines and have their food handed out that way, he actually had them remain in their squads and have their officers personally handing out the food to them. And for some reason, to me guys, this portion of the chapter was a pretty emotional bit. I mean, seeing each officer handing out their food and telling their troops that they did such a good job really seemed to hit home, especially when we see some of the officers like 10 and Shosa telling these guys that the food rations from here on out are your responsibility and to think carefully before eating and perhaps try to save as much as you can. Even Sugen letting the rookies know that they did such a good job, even saving him and his men from time to time. But this food distribution wasn't without its comedic moments, as we see that Kyokai either doesn't have much to say or is just in a rush to go and eat her own rations. And Bihei grossing his men out by not using the proper hygiene before he distributes the food. As Ko calls him out for taking a piss and not washing his hand, once again proving the fact that you never know who's watching. And then when we get to see Shin personally handing out the food to some of the commanding officers, I wouldn't blame you if you started to feel a bit teary-eyed like Bihei in this scene. Thank goodness that Shin still had some jokes when he got to Kyokai, because that lightened up the scene a little bit. And everyone else seems to be picking up on this vibe as well. Even En and Bihei asked Shin to knock it off, because he's making it seem like this is going to be their last time or something. But Shin lets them know that that's not it at all. He's really just truly grateful for the way they fought today. And with the Osen army also moving up, he feels as if they're closing in on the big finale, and he asks that his men show him that same spirit from tomorrow onwards. And you can tell after hearing this, the fire was reignited in Shin's men. But we can tell that they're not the only ones, as we see the not too far off Gyokuho unit seems to be fired up as well. And you can see that the competition between these two units hasn't died down either, because after hearing that the Gyokuho also rallied after hearing a speech from Ohan that day, Bihei can't accept that their morale was anything close to theirs, comparing it to the oh-so lackluster wet fart.
Chelsea Johnson is back for a fourth time.
Pretty good, how are you guys?
Why don't you just sing something, Chelsea?
Okay. I totally just farted.
But 10 does acknowledge that if it wasn't for the Gyokuho, then they wouldn't have been able to achieve what they did that day. That now it's obvious that the right wing's strength lies with both the Gyokuho and the Hishin units. And that if either one of them were to falter, then the right wing would be doomed. But Shin lets her know that that's not happening, and with the combined strength of them along with the Osen army, that Riboku's head is as good as theirs. Then we find ourselves with the Zhao Center Army and Riboku, and we see that he's also setting up his formations to prepare for the Qin Center Army. And even though some seem upset about the Zhao's left wing giving up ground and forcing them on the defensive, Riboku feels as though they made the right move, considering that Ohan and Shin's units had transformed into altogether different beasts, and that now they can no longer afford to take them lightly. Then we see Fute looking around wondering where Kane has gone to, and Riboku lets him know that Kane is off to deliver a message to Gyun and the others. And I couldn't help but to laugh that it was Fute asking about Kane. His obsession with her is so crazy. He's borderline a stalker.
Every breath you take, and every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you.
then Roboku tells his men not to be concerned, because he believes that Gyun and the others still have enough strength left to deal with Shin's left wing, and after breaking through it, it'll be Osun who will be falling victim to their pincer attack since he moved forward. But either way, Roboku believes with the Shin on the edge of starvation, as long as they maintain their absolute advantage, there's no way they can lose. And whether it be them breaking through and slaying Osun, or they wind up waiting the Shin out till they're nothing but skin and bones, either way, it is assured that they shall be the victors of this battle. And that was the chapter in a nutshell, guys. Alright guys, so that was another great chapter of Kingdom. It was really nice to finally see some of these characters we haven't seen in a long time, like Osun, Moten, and Roboku. And it looks like both of these armies are setting up for the big finale, but the big question there is this the final night? And if I had to take a guess about whether he's talking about it being the final night of food or the actual final night of the battle, I'm actually going to lean toward the side of it actually being the final night of the battle. And the main reason I'm thinking this is because we still have to think about Kanki at Gyo, and if this battle were to drag on any further, I'm not sure that Kanki and his men would still be there when the dust settled. But that's just the way I'm leaning. But if I'm to be honest, I'm not even confident about that either, because I still don't think that Osun came here without adequate rations and some sort of way to achieve victory. And it kind of makes me wonder, is there something that we've been missing? And I really think it has something to do with the rations, because if you remember, Osun was being pretty tight right from the get-go. So perhaps he may have more than he let on, or maybe since his army hasn't moved at all and has just been pretty much resting, cut down their rations significantly to have a little bit of a surplus. But one question that did get answered this chapter was that Ten was absolutely right about Osun's move. And with the Osun army moving forward, we've been reintroduced to one of Osun's generals, Denrimi. And I remember early on we found out that in the center army, Osun had plenty of generals, and we had already met Denrimi before. And I'm interested to see how much of a role he plays moving forward, because I'm thinking he's probably Osun's number 3 general. And with Akko and Mako down, I guess that makes him a de facto number 1. So hopefully he can show us a little bit of his skills and doesn't go down the same path as Akko and Maka. So the biggest question after this chapter comes actually from the Roboku side of the battlefield. And the one thing I'm wondering is, what is the message that Roboku is having Kane deliver to Gyun and the others? I remember the last time they delivered a message to Bananji, we found out that Bananji really wasn't using his total strength yet. So unless the message pertains to something along those lines, I really have no clue what Roboku could be telling them, because there's really no other weaknesses that the Zhao should be aware of, unless they intend to break Ohan's confidence and resolve by having a whole bunch of Zhao troops yelling that Osun isn't his father from across the battlefield, which would be a new low for Roboku, even lower than that arrow he let fly from Gika's bow. And the final thing I really wanted to discuss about this chapter was the main portion of the chapter where we had Shin have his officers distribute the food, and then himself actually serving food to his officers. And the thing I like most about this gesture is that this seems like it's going to help keep the Heishin unit's morale boosted even when they go into battle the next day. And as we saw this chapter, that was definitely one of Ten's chief concerns, but it looks like Shin's making all the right moves at all the right times, and it looks like his leadership skills are just growing right before our eyes. But anyway guys, let's move on to the comment of the week, and this week's comment comes from Great General Joseph, and what he has to say is, great review bro, Hard's probably going to try to troll Ten again, and Osun won't do anything. I'm super happy that Kanto is finally getting some shine. I've been saying that I think in the future he'll be one of Shin's lieutenants, because I think En dies. At the very least, I think he could be an infantry commander like Sugen. So obviously Hard didn't troll us, and we saw that Ten was absolutely correct, but what I'm really focused on is the second half of this comment. And yes, I do think Kanto has been getting a lot of focus lately, and it's obvious that Hard is trying to build him up to be something in the future. To be honest, I would have liked to see him take a bigger step forward this war and set himself more apart from the other rookies. And perhaps there's still more time for him to do something, but the only reason I'm really saying that is because I feel exactly the same way. I do feel like this guy is going to actually be an officer in the Heishin unit one day. So I really just wanted to see him set himself apart more, because right now the only thing that's separating him from the others is his crazy hairdo and the fact that he's rocking a leopard skin outfit on the battlefield. And you could be right about En dying, But the two guys that I think would have the most effect on Kanto if they were to die would be either Sugen or Shosa. And the reason I think that is mainly because those are the two guys that we've seen the most have interactions with Kanto. Since the beginning, it seems like both of them have taken a special interest in him and have pretty much been his mentors along the way. But that's just my take on it, and thanks for the question, Joseph. And guys, by the way, if you haven't checked out Great General Joseph's channel, check him out. He does a lot of Kingdom content and he's just getting started. So if you can, stop by his channel, check it out. And if you like it, hit the subscribe button. But anyway, guys, that about does it for this week's review. Let me know what you guys thought of the chapter in the comments section below. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video and feel free to share, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.